So, Michael, what do you think is going on here? A slump in Ether and Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, well, I think over the last, call it 3 to 6 months, we've had the buildup of the merge. The merge was highly successful last week. And now I think we're entering that period of time where we're searching for a new narrative. But really what we advise at Framework for all of our portfolio companies or entrepreneurs that we meet with is to really take a longer term horizon perspective of these markets. It's really difficult when you have early stage technology meeting public market liquidity to not pay attention to the prices. But it's really important for all of the builders out there to keep their blinders on and just keep building.
But if you could pinpoint one or two things, is there something you think is behind this, whether it's valid or not?
Well, I think maybe one of the ideas that was floated is just that this is the unwinding of a number of different trades that were put on that led up to the merge. And these trades could be basis trades or people that took out positions and options or futures that related up to the merge itself. And I think the unwinding process in the backdrop of a macro negative sentiment market is going to have more volatility than you would expect if it was a different market from a macro perspective.
So what is the crypto community buzzing about now that the merge has happened? And what are you excited to invest in?
Well, the merge was only last week, so it's been just a little bit of time. But really, when we launched this most recent fund at the end of March, one of the theses that we had that was really core to this new fund was gaming and Web3 gaming, GameFi, being the real narrative that we thought would take over, leading to hundreds of millions of consumers in the space with wallets and transacting using these games. And we think that narrative is actually now in the crosshairs of what's next, what's to come. Over the next 3 to 6 months, we think there's going to be 20 to 25 games that launch that have a more sustainable model than maybe what we've seen so far with the likes of Axie Infinity. And these games are being built by people who built games before that are for the first time building in the blockchain space. So we're really excited to see these entrepreneurs come in, and it's only going to be a couple more months until we see these games launch.
NFTs have been in a bust cycle, but since the merge, we've seen NFTs gaining momentum, prices rising. Is this the rebound of the NFT market, or is this going to be short-lived?
Well, one of the things that I think is really important to note about the merge, and this is one of the success points, is just the fact that you have the shift of proof of work to proof of stake representing the amount of energy in the size of the country of Finland. So that reduction in the amount of global energy consumption that is required to proliferate this network is a major change. And I think the art world in particular has been one of the most negative against the proof of work consensus model because that's what's been required to use and transact in these NFT marketplaces. Now that we see the shift and the energy reduction, therefore, I think we're going to start to see a lot more activity in the NFT market because the narrative, the negative sentiment is just gone at this point. Most NFTs are transacted on proof of stake chains after last week.
Now, I'm curious, given your former life at Snapchat, where you were a product manager, what you think about the future of monetizing the metaverse. We were just doing a story earlier about how Facebook Meta stock has plunged. Mark Zuckerberg has personally lost $71 billion, in part because investors just aren't excited about the metaverse or are skeptical about the metaverse. What do you think the opportunities are to monetize in the metaverse? Are you excited about it?
Absolutely. I think the definition of the metaverse is a bit of a nebulous one, though. This is exactly why we're excited about games. Games represents not only a new platform for game developers to build on top of, but really what that means is a new monetization model where free-to-play games, which have historically monetized at a 1% to 3% rate, are probably going to have a different monetization model, a different business model altogether, just based on the fact that you're imbuing a value into an NFT which could be represented in the game, which means that there's a secondary marketplace for it. And you're not just spending to be able to spend in the game. And then the second that you leave that game, you lose that value. I think that the ability for game developers to think creatively about how these monetization models can interact with a new type of game, new type of ecosystem, which we might want to call the metaverse, that I think is a fundamental change and a fundamental shift. So when we say we're excited about gaming, what we really mean is we're excited about the new business models for gaming, because those have been changing rapidly over the last couple of years.